welcome. A lot of you wanted to get some sound on the crime lab and the status of the crime lab. And so rather than make you wait till Monday, I'm out here working patrol tonight with and this great event that's with the parade getting ready. Parade starting in 30 minutes. But the Austin Police Department has been working for months now with the Texas Forensic Science Commission, looking at our crime lab operations. As you all know, we recently had a death of a great member of our department that had been courageously battling cancer, and as part of the change of command, where we're going to bring in a replacement, and some of the concerns that were actually been discussed previously in the last several months with the Crime Commission, with the Forensic Science Commission, we decided to initiate a cease operations and processing of DNA as a police department. DNA is an absolutely proven science that has led to two things. It's led to the freeing of people wrongfully convicted throughout the nation. I'm proud of the fact that Texas has led those efforts, and it's led to the solving of many violent crimes, and in our case, property crimes, because of this science. And consequently, it's really important to ensure that we as a police department are using the best processes, methods, and not only using the best practices, but exceeding the best practices. The Forensic Science Commission identified some concerns to us in our processes and the way that our crime lab has been doing business. One of the things that we've been discussing with them in the DA's office is the actual formulas that are being used to validate the samples, and we've been using a formula that's not consistent with the formula that's been adopted by the state of Texas. Consequently, what's going to happen now is that our team will be subjected to additional training, certification, recertification. Our processes will be subjected to a recertification and continued audit process. And most importantly, we'll be working with the District Attorney's Office, Department of Public Safety, to ensure that in the next few months, we anticipate this will take about 4 to 6 months to be back up and running and to have our operations be normal again. We are going to triage our outstanding cases, especially our violent crime cases, to ensure that we don't unduly delay those cases. We will be using the Department of Public Safety, who's been a great partner and continues to be a great partner to the crime lab, to the police department, to send those more critical cases to them and private labs. Having said that, we are in the process of hiring a new scientist to run our crime lab. I've made it real clear to my staff that I want the very best scientist that we can identify here in the state or in the nation to be our next lab director, and to actually have a scientist that has been validated here in Texas, because at the end of the day, I want to make sure that we are consistent with the standards that we as a state have adopted, and standards that are consistent with the FBI guidelines. Now, I'm not a scientist, so I can't speak as intelligently to the issue, but one of the questions I have asked is, what are the probability of an innocent person being convicted as a result of any challenges or opportunities for improvement in our process? And I have been told preliminarily that the probability is low. Having said that, I'm going to ensure, and I think the DA, in speaking with Rosemary Lindbergh, will ensure that we make it a priority to look at any prior cases to ensure that no one that's been innocent, no innocent person has been convicted, and to make sure that no wanted criminal has escaped the long arm of justice and the law because of any type of abnormalities or deviation or standard practices or best practices or in the profession. So with that, this will be a process to get it back up and running to full speed of about 4 to 6 months. We are in the process again of hiring our new scientist that's going to run the lab, and we're in the process of digesting a letter that I just received late this evening, or about 6 p.m. I just noticed it in my in-basket when I went upstairs to prepare to come down here, from the Forensic Science Commission here in Texas. It's about a 5-page letter. My recollection, how many pages do you all remember? 3? I think it's 3 to 5 page letter with some attachments talking about standards, talking about protocols, talking about the latest in the science. We will try to make that available sometime Monday afternoon in the interest of transparency as a police department. So with that, I will open up to any questions, and then we're going to go out and work on a route rally.
So y'all initiated this shutdown?
We did initiate this, absolutely. We did that voluntarily. I mean, there's no sense in continuing to move forward once we're told that there are concerns with some of our processes. There's concerns with some of the way that our training and certification has been happening since we've had, I would say, an absence with the medical challenges that one of our key team members was facing for quite a while. We're not going to continue moving forward if we're just going to have to turn around and retest. It just doesn't make sense to us. So we'd rather shut down, suspend operations, focus on the process improvements, focus on any deficiencies that have been identified, but more importantly, focusing on getting everything up and running as soon as possible, which we anticipate will be about 6 months.
So what would determine which cases go to a private lab and which cases go to DPS? Is it the urgency?
It'll be all about the urgency. So we will discuss if there's cases that we believe we need to get back very quickly. We will talk to DPS about their capabilities, and obviously they have their own caseload across the state. And if they can't meet it, then we would probably use a private lab and go from there. I wish I could help you, but I can't.
Are the private labs, do they follow the same standards that you are reworking, retooling to reach?
They will be following the standards I think have been adopted by the Forensic Science Commission here in Texas.
Was this a surprise, or this was something that you knew was coming down the line?
Well, we've been working on it for several months, and with the Forensic Science Commission, and it's time for us to now continue to phase 2, which is identified the problems, they've identified the challenges for us, and now our job is to go ahead and mediate those, fix them, and make them better. And so we're very confident, and so is the Texas Forensic Science Commission, that it's all fixable, it's all doable, and we'll get up and running in the next 4 to 6 months.
Has this ever happened in the lab's history?
Not to my knowledge in our history, but hey, science is always evolving, and sometimes when things evolve, if you have a lapse in following that evolution of the science, and it's brought to your attention, you have to go back and make sure that if we haven't followed the latest evolution, iteration of the science, we have to make sure that that doesn't have an impact on the validity of the results that we've reported to the courts and to defendants and to the DA's office and that the DA has used. So that'll be part of what we look at.
So how many cases are pending right now? It seems tedious.
I don't have the number on top of my head. I can tell you that we've been very lucky and fortunate that the District Attorney of New York, Mr. Cyrus Vance Jr., who's a colleague, and I think he's a great American, actually gave us well over $1 million to us and a few other departments around the country to help catch up on the sex kit backlog it's been a challenge in American law enforcement because of the economic costs. That we're actually well on our way to using those funds with private labs to get that done, and it shouldn't have any impact on that whatsoever.
How big is your DNA lab team?
Oh, sure.
How did this lapse occur? How did you guys get behind on this?
With what?
The science not being up to date.
Well, my understanding from what I've seen so far is that our science team made a decision to stay with one standard when the rest of the state moved to another standard, and quite frankly, we're not going to be an island unto ourselves. We're going to follow, as long as I'm chief, the standards that the scientific community has agreed to. Right? You don't ever want to be out there on an island by yourself. And so now that we've got the audit done and some more work to do, we're being given a roadmap to ensure that we move forward to be not just meeting standards, we want to exceed standards, and to ensure that moving forward, we aren't an island unto ourselves. We want to be on the boat with the rest of the community, so it's defensible, it's scientifically validated. All of our processes and whatever numerical scores they're using or formulas they're using.
For those waiting to get answers, what would you say to them that would like to, get the answers from their DNA test?
I think that what I would tell them is it's important for us to get the right answer. When we know that safety and lives are on the balance, we have to make sure we have a duty to make sure that we get the right answers. And so I would just say that although it is going to be an inconvenience, it's going to create some challenges because it's going to, at a minimum, slow things down for us for some cases for at least 6 months. And on top of that, we continue to grow very rapidly as a city. We leverage science, we leverage technology to keep Boston one of the safest cities in the country. And so we already have a built-in backlog. One of the things that you'll see in our budget this year is we're going to be asking for more DNA scientists because we already have a naturally built-in backlog that is significant in our cases. And so, but we don't want to worry about backlog right now. What we want to worry about is making sure and focus on ensuring that we're doing the science right. And obviously, as a police officer, I'm not a scientist, but I can tell you this: as a leader, I am not going to rest. I'm going to make sure that we find the next director of that lab. I want somebody that speaks the language, breathes the language, oozes the language, and has the language of the science as part of their DNA, so we don't have to rely on anybody but the very best to ensure the sanctity of our crime lab.
And reiterate, how important is having this lab here within APD and not having to solely rely on DPS or a private lab?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it is, if you look around the country, what's been happening for the last couple of years, since the FBI changed the numerical standards for the process, these issues have sprung up all over the country in quite a few cities around the country as departments are catching up. For us, it was a perfect storm in that the science was changing, the FBI issues an alert, and there's a change in the way they're doing business, and at the same time we're dealing with our own personnel challenge with one of the most critical members of our team that we rely on as not a scientist to manage the lab, and I think that lapse has really put us behind the 8 ball a little bit, and we have some catching up to do.
How will you make the determination that you have reached these standards? Will that be an internal process?
No, that'll be through the auditing and the accreditation commission, including the Forensic Science Commission and the DPS, who audits. Understand, just remember this: that we get audited on a regular basis. Our systems, our processes get audited on a regular basis, and we'll continue to audit moving forward to ensure that we don't slip backwards in the future. So anything else?
Last question.
Do you expect this to last longer than 6 months?
I hope not. I think within 6 months we should be able to get it done. The good thing is that we have intelligent people that once we get the leadership in place here, and once we get that roadmap that's already pretty much well developed and should be fully developed, we anticipate that we'll be up and running in 6 months. And quite frankly, when you get the letter from the Forensic Science Commission, I just looked at the end. You always want to look what the end is, right? Just like in a news story. What is the end of the letter? And the end of the letter really gives me great comfort in the fact that we will be able to get that crime lab up and running and having it to be the state-of-the-art crime lab that people of this city and this police department, police chief expects. We need to have our own crime lab, because if you don't have your own crime lab, then you are not masters of your own destiny in terms of prioritizing cases. If you think about the Haruka Weiser investigation recently, it was such a shocking event to this city. Those are the things that we want to always have the ability as a community to prioritize our own cases and to really be in charge of our own destiny. So although it is an operation that is challenging around the country, it's an operation that I would rather take on the challenge, meet the challenge, than to say, hey, let's just give it up and give it to somebody else, because when you give it up, then you give up very important considerations, I think, now in this community. Okay, thanks. We'll see you out there at Rock Rally, everybody. Who's going to the parade? Anybody? Nobody?